This week's reflection is taken from Matthew 25, verses 14 to 30. And this is another story told by Jesus. It's about what he expects of us. It's told in relation to his return, that what he expects is that he'll find us doing what he wants us to do. Not to get lazy and think, oh, we'll have time to prepare when the time comes, we'll work things out. So in this story, a man goes away and he leaves his servants in charge of his business. Now it seems that he was a pretty hard-nosed businessman, because later on in the story, one of the servants calls him someone who will harvest where they have not sown and will gather where they have not scattered seed. But this man hands over his business dealings to his servants while he goes away. Now to one of them, he hands over 5/8 of his business. To another one, he gives 2/8, and to another, 1. It may seem a bit unfair, but it says that he does it according to their ability. So it's no use giving the 5/8 to the man who has less ability. The one given the major share immediately sets to work and actually doubles the amount that he's been given. The man who had the 2/8 did exactly the same thing, and he doubled the amount that he'd been given. But the man who had only 1/8 of his master's money went and hid it. He buried it underground, and in those days that was the safest place to hide something, as long as you remembered where you'd put it. When the master returned, the servants were all called and they were asked to give account of what they'd done with his business. The first man showed him that he had doubled the money, so 5/8 of the original had become 10/8 of the original. The master was very pleased with him, commended him, said, "You are a good and faithful servant, and because you've proved yourself faithful, I'll put you in charge of, or give you more responsibility." The second servant with the 2/8 came and he said, "I have doubled the amount that you gave me," so his 2 became 4. A lot less than the man who had the 10/8, but he gets exactly the same commendation and the promise that because he's shown himself faithful, he will be given more responsibility. When the third servant returns, he just returns the amount that he'd been given. And he explained that he was afraid of his master, and so he'd hidden it for safekeeping. And he gets told he is a wicked and lazy servant, and he was thrown out of the master's business. Now the first 2 were commended because they had set to and used what they had entrusted to them. The difference in the amount made absolutely no difference. It was their faithfulness and using their abilities to their utmost. The third man had seemingly been afraid of losing what he'd been entrusted with, and so he did nothing except safeguard it. In doing so, he produced nothing, and in the end, he lost even what he had been given. We all have different abilities, different giftings. The call on our lives is to use those abilities in serving God's kingdom. We have different levels of ability. We're asked to do the work to the standard of what our ability is. And this means it's very silly to compare ourselves to what another person might achieve. Some people will be travelling the world with great worldwide ministries and might be rescuing people from people trafficking. Someone else might be just never leave their little village, but they're a source of great love and comfort to those around them who are hurting or lonely. Doesn't matter. The thing is, are we working to our full potential? God's made an investment in all of us. He wants to be able to rely on us. If we act responsibly in what we've been given, then our capacity will actually grow. And there's of course a parallel in the physical, that when we exercise our muscles, they grow stronger, and when they grow stronger, we're able to lift heavier things. However, if we don't use the muscles, they grow weaker, and eventually we lose the use of them. The third servant who hid the money, he was only concerned with it was self-concern. He was afraid that if he lost the money, his master would just be angry with him. So he did nothing, he produced nothing, and he actually became useless to the master. The things that can make us like that third servant are fear, laziness, carelessness, and self-interest. When it comes to the things of God, we can be afraid of change, because our security is in what we know, not necessarily in God. And so we resist any change in the church because it's threatening that security. Or we could be lazy We just don't want to do something, and so we say, oh, I'm not qualified to do that, or I haven't had any training. But really it just boils down to, I don't want to do it. We can be careless in just accepting the standards, the values that the world has around us, because the world is constantly screaming its values at us. Do we take the time to check them up? Are they God's values? Isaiah 55:8. For my thoughts are not yours, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. We can also be very self-centered. We use our abilities to gain wealth, status, popularity, whatever. We can be doing that with the outward appearance of being godly. We might go to church every Sunday and we might be saying all the right things, but actually our behaviour is pointing to something quite different. We're called to do the work that Jesus wants us to do. We are to invest our lives, not to waste them.
Jesus, all I am and have, and ever hope to be. Jesus, oh Lord Jesus, all I am and have, ever hope to be. All of my ambitions, hopes and plans, I surrender these into your hands. All of my ambitions, hopes and plans, I surrender these into your hands. For it's only in your will that I am free. For it's only in your will that I am free. Jesus, oh for Jesus, all I am and ever hope to be. All of my ambitions, hopes and plans, I surrender these into your hands. All of my ambitions, hopes and plans, I surrender these into your hands. For it's only your will